Good afternoon, and welcome to the Lunchroom on Radio Caribbean International. It is Wednesday, the 5th of March, 2025. It's Ash Wednesday all around the world, and this is program number 1331 of the Lunchroom. I'm your host, Calixte Jr. Now, in addition to 101.1 FM radio, you can also get us at our website, rcistlucia.com. We are also up and running on Facebook. You can just search for us there. We're streaming live. And as well, don't forget, you can get us on our website, live as well, live streaming. But as well, if you want to get the previous shows, you can do that as well. It's downloadable on that website, rcistlucia.com. If you want to call in to tell us what's on your plate today, the number to do so is 452-3046. Again, 452-3046. And you can also reach us on WhatsApp. That WhatsApp number is 724-0008. Again, 724-0008. We're going to send out some birthday greetings for today. First, Miss Nicola Dove. Happy birthday to you. Wishing you a wonderful, fantastic birthday celebration. Hope it's a great one. And we also want to send out birthday greetings to Janique Landers Theodore. Happy birthday to you. Wishing you a fantastic birthday celebration. Bit of history for today, looking back at on this day in the year 363 AD. The Roman Emperor Julian moved from Antioch with an army of 90,000 to attack the Sassanid Empire in a campaign that led to his death. In the year 1496 on this day, an English king at the time, Henry VII, granted John Cabot, who was actually Italian, commission to explore for new lands. We now move on to our dish of the day.
Serving now, the Daily Dish.
And welcome back to the Lunchroom here at Radio Caribbean International. Of course, a blessed day to you. And for those who, of course, noted yesterday, in fact, was Mardi Gras. It was the culmination of carnival celebrations, the traditional carnival celebrations, which predate the period of Lent, period of fasting, and prayer within the religious community, Christian community. And so, of course, we did see Carnival coming to a crescendo in Port of Spain, in Trinidad and Tobago, as well as in Dominica. Those two islands, of course, maintaining those traditional dates as well. In the French departments, Martinique, Guadeloupe, Cayenne, French Guiana, they also keep to the traditional day. And of course, it is, as I mentioned today, would be Ash Wednesday. And so no doubt there will be different religious services for that purpose, for individuals to go out and get those ashes. Now, of course, never a dull time in the world, and never a dull time perhaps even in the Caribbean. Last night, his first address to the Congress, President Donald Trump gave quite a lot of interesting comments there, but we perhaps will have to put that on pause because there are so many issues in that regard to unpack. But certainly right here in the Caribbean, one that is raising a lot of concern and comment is that of proposed or structure being put up by the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank. Of course, the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank is the entity, the institution that manages the monetary policy of the Eastern Caribbean, the members of the OECS, And of course, it has a very important role to play in the stability of the economy, as well, of course, the stability of the Eastern Caribbean dollar, the currency. And of course, I think we could say, generally speaking, that they've done a pretty good job over the years and have continued to do so. And thankfully, in our case, we have a system within which uh, many countries are coming together to set that policy and to maintain that policy. And of course, that's done through the Monetary Council. Now, that institution is based over in St. Kitts and Nevis. So, in like manner, with in the case of the Court of Appeal, the Eastern Caribbean Supreme Court being headquartered here in St. Lucia, the central bank for the region is in fact headquartered over in St. Kitts and Nevis, and they have a very well-appointed campus over there, a purpose-built facility where their headquarters are located, and of course, it's in a very prominent location, just near a roundabout heading out of kind of midway between the capital, the downtown, and the airport, as well as the touristic area um, of Frigate Bay, and so that has been certainly a really important institution for the St. Kitts and Nevis, for that Twin Island Federation for some time. Now, of course, as with many of these financial institutions of that nature, uh, they tend to have care and provisions for their various staff. And of course, in some instances, they may provide housing for staff. And of course, in many instances, they also provide some form of accommodation for the leadership in the case of the governor of that institution. It's headed by a governor who manages the operations of the central bank. And what has caused lots of concern is the extent of a new residence for the governor being constructed through the bank. And that has, of course, come by way of a letter, a missive, which has been recently been put into circulation, coming from the office of the Prime Minister, from the hands of the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And of course, although it was written on the confidential cover, it has certainly entered the public domain. And in fact, the Prime Minister, the Honorable Ralph Gonsalves, pointed out that he knew that it was going to get into the public domain as well. And the issue being raised is the extent, as he placed it, an extraordinary sum of EC $22 million being spent for the construction of this official residence of the governor. Now, of course, we can say, I mean, outright, immediately, that this is not going to be the property of the office holder. It is certainly the property of the bank. I guess you could say it would be kept as an asset of the bank. But certainly, it is a tremendous investment to be made at a time, of course, when so many countries within the region are facing challenges economically. And this, of course, has also been a project, I should point out, has been going on for a little while now. But even that said, though, we've had problems for a while in the Eastern Caribbean. There's no doubt about it. And so some may see it as, well, investment that the bank is going to have for perpetuity. It's going to keep that for a while. But is it an investment that necessarily redounds to broad and widespread benefit to the Eastern Caribbean. And I think that certainly is where the extent of discourse is going to be coming very, very critical. Now, of course, we don't know for a fact whether it's the sum is what it is. We have not actually heard that coming from any official source outside of the Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. But if we are, of course, going to be taking what he's saying at face value, $22 million is a significant sum to be spending on a house. And in fact, he has even suggested that although, he's been generally very supportive and like the idea of the current governor, he certainly does not believe that this is something that can stand. And the letter certainly goes to town on talking to this issue of the spending. Now, of course, we've seen opulence in the past, unfortunately, and we've seen issues of maybe white elephants and whatnot. As to how this actually fits into the bank's priorities is left to be seen. It's certainly a big question mark, no doubt, for the bank. One could argue, well, if that amount of money, could they perhaps have put in an apartment complex for workers, for employees of the bank that may have even bigger impact on staff and work productivity and something to that effect, right? So certainly the need for scrutiny of institutions, whether they may be at the local level or at the regional, sub-regional, or regional level, is important. And then especially quite often we seem not to. I mean, there's a great deal of scrutiny at the local level in terms of what is spent by the state governments. These entities have to go through a public process of putting forward a budget. Albeit there are still challenges and there's still a long way to go in terms of access to information and in terms of public tendering and all of that. Still, we have a ways to go, no doubt about it. But there is still I would say, certainly a degree of scrutiny with respect to how the state government, whether in St. Vincent, whether in St. Lucia, whether in Grenada, Dominica, whichever part, Antigua, spends the state resources. But these institutions are also effectively owned by all of us, right? The central bank is a regional institution, and so therefore it St. Lucia has a part of it, Dominica has a part, everybody has a part and a say in it. And so how they are actually spending their setting up their budgets quite often does not really get the extent of scrutiny that is the same in terms of other institutions. Now, sometimes that might be by deliberate design of these very same heads, which we have, who are the ones who set the budgets and who determine these things. So we definitely have to hold these institutions accountable as well. There have been, of course, efforts by the bank itself. They certainly do go around every year, and they have outreach sessions. So perhaps it will also be important to ensure that that is also seen to be part of the accounting that has to be done by such institutions, and all institutions, regional institutions, the same. Whether it's the OECS Commission, whether it is the Supreme Court, whether it is the Pharmaceutical Authority, the other procurement agencies, ECTEL, they all certainly do have to have a sense of accountability to the individuals. And that level of scrutiny, of course, will redound to hopefully better decision making, and certainly decision making that is more certainly in tune with what individuals think should be a priority moving forward. Now, sometimes in many of these projects, you have scope creep, and some are suggesting that in fact that figure was did not start off anywhere near being $22 million. It may have started off much smaller than that. But then the bigger question is, again, how are those things managed? Who is keeping tabs? Who's ensuring that we are not overspending on any one particular project? It is very easy sometimes to be able to get into something, into the rabbit hole, and then you find that it balloons into something far, far more than was what was expected. So certainly, it is important that institutions, particularly like the central bank, which has um, a very broad role in terms of monetary policy, but also in terms of management of financial institutions on a whole across the region, that certainly their reputation has to be, well guarded, so that there is in fact confidence in the decisions that are coming out, or the ability of those institutions to be able to guide, to make good decisions, and to operate above board. So it is certainly a matter, I think, will require some clarity at the very, very least, or some level of accountability coming from the bank. I don't know if that has come out as yet. I have not noted it, explaining this current situation, and to in fact ensure that this is going to result in value for money. And of course, as was pointed out in the letter by Dr. Gonzalez, he at this point, because it's already so far advanced, um, it has to be completed. You can't back down from it at this point, because then it'll effectively be a waste of funds. But then moving forward, then he was speculating, well, what is it going to be used for? Can it in fact be sold, maybe to a private entity, or somehow other means found regarding it? So certainly we have to look at some of these decisions. Scrutiny is important. The accountability is important. And this coming out, of course, certainly does raise that issue, which is very critical for us. Now, a matter that, of course, as we speak to the issue of accountability, is that of water, and our ongoing challenges with water, the provision of potable water here in St. Lucia. This is, of course, nothing new. And in some respects, believe it or not, we have actually made, considering where we were perhaps in 1990 to where we are today, right, 35 years on, we've actually made some significant progress in terms of water, and the availability of water in St. Lucia. We sometimes have very short memories as to where things were at certain times, and the challenges that existed before, and where we are at now. And of course, that is not to say that we anywhere near being perfect, right? But because we obviously are dealing with significant interruptions with respect to the water supply in the north of the island. And that has been due to the fact that the entity that manages it, Wasco, is having tremendous infrastructural problems, right? And in particular, dealing with the ability to, well, you could say, well, not, to move the water, to sort of a transmission, if you like, of the water from the John Compton Dam, which is deep in the interior at Millet, to the Thibbles treatment plant, which is in effect this raw water main line, which brings the water to the Thibbles treatment plant, for where it is then treated for use in the north of the island. Now, that situation is, I mean, and again, this is where we are faced with problems that are not addressed and they are left to fester, and a lack of investment for so many years that the problems continue to get worse. Now, we have still not satisfactorily addressed the issue of uh, what it is really required in terms of the cost of production of water, and the system that we have, and to maintain that system to be able to deliver what would be an adequate and satisfactory level of service. Water as a utility is something that everybody requires. There's no getting away from it. And the reality is, we are seeing a growing demand for water, particularly in the north of the island. And we've known this for quite some time. When uh, the system that we have right now was originally conceptualized and designed, it was designed for a certain capacity. It was designed for a certain amount of storage in the John Compton Dam. At the time, I think it was about 700 million gallons. It was also designed for a certain flow rate to then bring that up to the Thibbles treatment plant. And that treatment plant was designed to have a certain capacity, which is about 10 million gallons per day of production, right? And we have actually exceeded that. The demand as it is right now, from my understanding, has exceeded the supply. Now, when you have these types of situations, obviously you're going to be in a very difficult situation. Now you have, and in addition to that, that was built back in the 1990s. Got on, I think, on stream somewhere around 1995, 96 or thereabouts, and various aspects of that system have faced tremendous challenges. Of course, we've seen what has occurred, the debacle of the desilting of the John Compton Dam. Now, I'm speaking about, of course, the situation in the north, not tackling what is the situation in the south, which has also been a tremendous challenge as well. But the fact that we actually in the north were able to have water storage has certainly helped a tremendous bit in terms of being able to ensure some level of security, some level of resilience in the cases of drought, more so than in other parts of the island. And of course, that has also allowed for support of the economic activity that we have enjoyed in the north of the island, particularly by way of these large hotel properties, which of course take up quite a lot of water. But when we are looking at such systems, there has to be a long-term plan, and there has to be a long-term commitment to financing that plan. And if there is not the financing in place, then we are always going to be in a situation of catch up. And that is part of the problem that we face. And so here we are now, dealing with situations where you've got a pipeline that is, has leak after leak after leak and has to be repaired, almost on a regular basis at this point, because it really has to be, decommissioned effectively, or you need a new pipeline. But of course, the question is, how is that going to be funded? And so, is it going to be a situation where, again, the government is going to have to take those funds directly from their own self, or they're going to have to raise loans, or they're going to have to get grants to be able to fund these projects? That has been part of the approach, basically, because the entity in and of itself is not bringing in enough sufficient revenue to be able to make these types of capital investments. Now, you then have, of course, so sometimes you may, you know, get lucky. You may get some assistance. We saw that in the case of the Denry Water Supply Project with the Mexicans coming on board to be able to fund some of it. Invariably, however, you have to go out and take loans, like from the Caribbean Development Bank, funding again the some parts of that same Denry Water Supply Project, parts of the VA4 Water Supply Project, to bring some relief into the immediate situation. But clearly, there is a significant amount of investment that is going to have to be made in respect of the water sector in St. Lucia. So, quite often, it's nice to talk about the flashy projects, right? And the flashy projects like, oh, we want a brand new airport terminal, right? These things, it needs to be, shiny and lots of glass and look really, really nice and fancy. But the question is, are we doing that at the expense of the less flashy, but certainly very necessary projects that have to be done? I mean, even in the case of the very same water company, we saw in the past that again, a brand new flashy building constructed for them down in VA4, and the question is, was that the priority versus actually making investments in the what is in fact the backbone infrastructure to be able to ensure that individuals can in fact get what they are paying for. So it is very important that in this matter, we need to ensure that the matter of water is taken very, very, very seriously. It's not going to get better until we, in fact, make some necessary decisions regarding placement of entities like WASCO on a sound footing so that they can, in fact, be able to properly run them their own selves or manage themselves, as well as making the kind of investments that are required to be able to fund and support the expansion of the system. Because at this point, as I said, we are seeing an expanding economy. We're talking about however many new hundreds of new hotel rooms, and these new hotel rooms are going into where exactly? Into the north of the island, into areas that, of course, are already facing tremendous water pressures. But the truth about it is, I'm not sure that we have the capacity in in any way already around the island to be able to support the growing demand. So whether these hotels were being built in the south of the island or in the west of the island or the east of the island, that may be neither here nor there, because the reality is the infrastructure to be able to support that is not there. So it's an important aspect that we need to be looking at in terms of how we deal with the contributions, perhaps as well, of these projects. It's quite often that we say, hey, the investment is I'm putting down 300 room hotel, and I'm putting down 50 villas and and 10 restaurants and whatever on my private property. But my private property is having a knock-on effect on the services of everybody else, because it means that for me to get my guests to that private property, they have to use the public road. We have to use public services like water, right? And so those issues are very important as well. Now, we have effectively not asked for very much by way of development contributions for development in St. Lucia. Invariably, we come out and we dish out the red carpet, and developers who quite often are said they're coming in with private finance, they are putting out money to build their property, but then the reality is they in very many other countries, there's actually what is known as a development contribution. You need to be able to say, how are you going to actually support maybe widening the road, or how are you going to be able to support the impacts that your development might be making on the environment, or how you be supporting the matter of water. And of course, a lot of these things are very critical to the overall satisfaction of the broader community. Because let's face it, if you have these commercial enterprises and individuals are coming in, how are we going to fill those pools? How are we going to ensure that people are still going to get their showers, and the laundries are still going to run, and the kitchens are still going to be operating, and the housekeeping is still going to be able to clean the floors? A lot of that, of course, is part of the challenge that we have right now. So it has to be looked at within a broader, holistic plan for tackling the challenges of the services that we have. Now, of course, the other side of it is that we do have to deal with better regulation. It's been a long time that we've been hearing about, well, why don't we ensure that individuals must have water storage? And I think it should be a no-brainer by now, but the reality is we are still finding situations where individuals may not have sufficient storage, and we are seeing the implications of that, because the reality is, sometimes you will have shortages. We will have situations where the system may have to be done. Look at the current situation that we have. The utility gave notice to say, hey, this is coming. We're going to be shutting down the system, store water. But perhaps, unfortunately, not everybody has the capacity to store sufficient amounts of water over an extended period of time. And so therein lies also the problems and the challenges that we are facing as a country. And water is quite often one that is forgotten within the mix of things, albeit we need it every single day. And perhaps otherwise, we won't be able to survive. That's our dish of the day. When we come back, we're going to take in our weather report and then head to the phone lines.
This has been The Daily Dish.
Thank you so much, Calixte. It's now time for us to take a look at the weather report. The weather report at this hour is made possible with the compliments of Island Style Tile and Bath.
Island Style, yeah. We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, yeah. We're up to make the right choice. Island Style, whoa. We got the time that will make you happy. Island Style, oh yeah. We make your dream come alive in Island Style. We are kinds and insects, pieces and ground. Everything you need is on the outside. For the best price and the latest style, take a little drive down to Island Style car. We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, quality, price, service, choice. It's all an Island Style.
Visit us at our showrooms in Bellarosa, Rodney Bay, on the John Compton Highway, Cass Street, and behind Ruby's Gas Station on the Library Viewport Highway. So call us on 450-452 or 453-TILE. Island Style, Tile and Bath. When you think tile, think Island Style.
This is Radio Caribbean International. It's now time for the weather news.
It most certainly is. Now for the latest weather report as of 12 noon today, it's the 5th of March, 2025. The forecast of this hour is Lucius Frederick. The forecast for St. Lucia valid for the next 24 hours. The winds will be blowing between the east, southeast and the east near 18 miles per hour or 30 kilometers per hour, with the weather partly cloudy skies becoming cloudy at times with some light to moderate showers. A recap of the forecast for St. Lucia valid for the next 24 hours. The winds blowing between the east, southeast, and the east near 18 miles per hour or 30 kilometers per hour. With the weather, partly cloudy skies becoming cloudy at times with light to moderate showers. The marine forecast for seas in a 25-mile or 40-kilometer radius from St. Lucia. For the Castries Harbor, high tide will be at 26 minutes before 3 this evening, and low tide, will be at 26 before 3 this evening, and the high tide will be at 20 minutes after 9 tonight. The Vieux Bay's low tide, a minute after 4 this afternoon, and the high tide, 27 minutes after 10 tonight. The seas are locally rough, the waves, and northerly to northeasterly swells, 6 to 8 feet, the same as 1.8 to 2.4 meters in open waters. Small craft operators and seabathers are advised to exercise caution due to locally rough seas. For the Lesser Antilles, it's partly cloudy to cloudy with some light to moderate showers over the central and the northern portions of the Lesser Antilles. Elsewhere will be fair to partly cloudy with a few brief showers. The weather summary indicates the Atlantic high pressure system will continue to generate moderate easterly winds and locally rough seas across the eastern Caribbean during the next couple of days. Low-level moisture and instability will cause some cloudy periods with showers over the Lesser Antilles during the forecast period. That is the Atlantic high-pressure system will continue to generate moderate easterly winds and locally rough seas across the eastern Caribbean during the next couple of days. And moisture and instability will cause some cloudy periods with showers over the Lesser Antilles during the forecast period. And that is the official weather report at this time. Join us again in the morning for our next official report on the station at around 7 o'clock. But before we leave, a reminder that there's an advisory for small craft operators and seabathers to exercise caution due to locally rough seas. Thank you very much, Financiers, for the update, or Lucia, for the update at this time. The weather was made possible by Island Style Tile and Bath.
This has been RCI's Weather News. For more information, call the Weather Hotline at 454-3452. RCI 101 number 1.
Island style, yeah. We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, yeah. We'll have to make the right choice. Island style, whoa. We got the time that will make you happy. Island style, oh yeah. We make your dream come alive in Island style.
We have tiles and princess, pieces and ground. Everything you need is on the house out. For the best price and the latest style. Take a little drive down to Island Style car.
We got the time to make you go. We got the time to make you say, yeah. Quality, price, service, choice. It's all an Island Style.
Visit us at our showrooms in Belarus and Rodney Bay on the John Compton Highway, Castries, and behind Ruby's gas station on the Library Viewport Highway. Or call us on 450-452 or 453-TILE. Island Style, Tile and Bath. When you think tile, think Island Style.
And welcome back to the Lunchroom here at Radio Caribbean International. And of course, if you want to add your voice to the mix, the number to do so is 4523046. We've got about 70 minutes to go before the hour of 2 o'clock. And we go to phone lines at this time. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Lunchroom. And what's on your plate today?
Good afternoon, Mr. George. How are you?
Very good caller. How are you doing?
I'm all right, thanks. And you and your family, everybody good?
Very blessed. Thanks for asking.
Yes,
They're good.
All right. Water. You know, water will continue to haunt us, boy. Because these problems you're taking there. This is you're talking about there. These things have been with us for over 2 decades, more than 2 decades.
More than 2 decades. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
This is why, I don't know if you remember from the late 20th century, 1990 something, we embarked on what you call what? An effort to transform the water sector, and importantly, to source, the resources
Mm-hmm.
to rebuild infrastructure, which was basically, comatose. I mean, it is, we had so much. It took so much. It required so much because they've been papers, research papers, and upon research papers on finding out the true problem.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them, there's one particular one that said that it would take $3 billion over the next 40 years to bring Vasco to where it should be in order to be functional and effective. All right. So as we went along, your dad was the minister of public utilities at the time, and the decision was made to go the way of public sector, private sector partnership. You remember that?
Right. Well, first
I
remember first corporatization, and then to shift it towards public-private partnership.
Corporatization, where was given, so as to.
On the phone at that time.
I think somebody has joined your caller. Sorry. Okay, go ahead.
I was saying that we decided to go down that route, and a lot of time and a lot of money, a lot of capital was consumed in the whole process of preparing Vasco for that. You remember this thing even reached the bidding stage, eh?
Yes.
Remember that?
Yes, I remember.
Right. And it just fell away.
Well, remember there were even accusations that were because the company was not happy with,
all kind of
actions by the minister of the time, and
all kind of things. And then that just fell away completely, and we decided to go back.
But the problem has not disappeared. You see, and that's the mistake we keep on making.
Go back to square one.
Yes.
And this is where we find ourselves now. So added to that now, we have the dam, the silting of the dam.
Right.
Which it wasn't so bad at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So added to the lack of infrastructure, the waters are already in the ground now. To maintain it now,
mm-hmm.
And you had all these old pipes and so it put us in a situation then now that is like Vasco became like a afterthought now. You know what I mean? That we just manage Vasco the best we can. And this is what is happening to us now.
It's almost as if we Vasco is on is it what they call it, palliative care?
Yeah.
you know the end result is going to be death, but then you're just trying to ease the pain somewhat,
Yeah. But that's what it is. So I don't think people trying to blame it on particular administrations and this and that. But this thing, this kind of thing not helping us out at all, that kind of approach to this kind of chronic problems this country faces,
mm-hmm.
of which water is rare, way up there, and you have crime and serious requires, because one thing, the main thing when you were doing this thing was you had to have buy-in. In other words, you're not expected to, as a people, as a government, to politicize it. It wasn't like, and because nobody, that alone in itself,
mm-hmm.
would not be attractive to people investing their money.
Mm-hmm.
If they feel, well, this whole thing is subject to the women fancies of political bias.
Which was in fact part of the problem to begin with, remember? Because
exactly.
it was WASA, it was under the control, it was like a department of government before.
Yeah.
So
people on the board, control management and so on and so forth, had interest,
mm-hmm.
a big conflict of interest.
Mm-hmm.
They were both big consumers of water. So this thing has been going on for way back, and I don't know. It's easy, but one of the things that I think people, maybe, have a problem with is that, I mean, you think is it fair that people in management positions, top management positions, in an organization like that, the disparity between them, their salaries, and the people on ground, who's supposed to day after day make this thing work? It's too great. government, you know, and you see sometimes people politicize these kind of things and say, as if all of a sudden we have a water problem. Therefore, is the current government that, you know, that's not doing anything. You know, that's the kind of people we have become, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's not doing anything to help out the situation. You know what I'm saying? But quickly, you know, I watch painfully some your friend, Mr. Donald.
My friend. Okay.
Yeah, Donald. Last night he made his speech.
You did better than me, but go ahead.
But you know, in all fairness,
Yes.
there are things that, you know, objectives he has.
Right.
That's not necessarily that's not necessarily bad, you know.
You cannot fault him for having such
For example,
objectives.
to cut corruption and inefficiency and effectiveness of government institutions and so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
That's all right.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? In other words, you know, you don't want people paying for you know, the government spending monies for services that are never delivered and
Mm-hmm.
whatever, or over cost and all these sort of things. But you want to do, in other words, you want to go from point A to point B.
Mm-hmm.
You see where you want to go. That's fair. That's fair. But you don't get there. The reality of governance is that you don't get from point A to point B by just using a saw, like this guy using what kind of thing, machine saw.
Oh, a chainsaw.
Chainsaw, rather. Yeah. In other words, you cannot just the process is what's important. How do you get there?
Mm-hmm.
You know, that the process is more important than actually achieving the goal, because you cannot destroy, you cannot cut off your nose to smite your face.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and this is what is happening.
Mm-hmm.
And though, you know, rarely interspersed in his objectives,
Mm-hmm.
there'll be one or two few things that I would consider noble aspirations,
Mm-hmm.
because it's not everything that he wants to achieve that's just not,
Mm-hmm.
you know, desirable.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the process is what he doesn't
Yeah.
understand. Or
Yeah.
those are-
Know-how matters, caller.
Exactly.
Right?
And
I mean,
if
you
you're
could
going to destroy, because the very people, if you want to just make a major sweep, to get rid of all of them, and the ones that are not involved in these inefficiencies and the corruption, you get rid of them too. Where are you going to start?
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's the whole thing. You must be able to sift out the good from the bad, and if those that you know are not good, get rid of them some way or the other. But you cannot just have a sweeping thing and just tell everybody, you know, the way they want to approach it.
But you cannot blame people for being very cynical about his agenda, though, because where he has started out, where he started off on that road, you know, seems to be geared towards things that are, you know, that appear to be against very, very empirical and more about empire building and certainly a lot about you know, taking away, being very selfish, effectively, you know. So you're taking away foreign aid, you know. That's your first place where you're going.
Exactly.
You're starting off with programs that are supposed to assist minorities, like the DEI, you know. How is that your first point of attempting to deal with issues in the name of cutting back on waste? When people have pointed out that, you know, there's so many other big ticket items where you should be focusing on, but they haven't focused on those. So
anyway, boy. Anyway, thanks.
Thanks very much, caller, for that contribution. Have a good one. And of course, well, at some point we're going to have to get deeper into the matter of that speech as well from last night. But we try to squeeze in one more call before we end the program. Good afternoon. Welcome to the lunchroom. What's on your plate today?
Good afternoon, Mr. George.
How are you doing, caller?
Welcome back, man.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hope you're good.
Anyhow, I have several topics to come up with. But with the water, we have to start from our government. We talk about the amount of hotel we put in and how tourists visiting us. And the government has to make it law. Anybody put in a hotel on the soil of St. Lucia, start taking water, desolidated water. Barbados don't have a river. I think they have a gully, but they don't have a river like us. And yet still I don't hear they talking about shortage of water like us. It's something we have to take serious, real serious, because water is life.
Barbados uses groundwater primarily, yes.
Take the hotel, make them desolidated the sea, and everywhere you pass St. Lucia is a small island. They near the sea because they don't want to build a hotel in the interior. Everybody wants to go by the sea and take that same seawater, desolidated it. The tourists can bathe with it. They can wash with it. You could wash the kitchenwares with it. And what little water we have coming in from Roscoe, they can drink too and cook with it.
I mean,
we don't have no problem of water. No problem of water. And I think I said it on your show before, because one day rain in St. Lucia.
In principle, caller, in principle, we do not even need desalination in St. Lucia. We have, very generally speaking, I mean, our average rainfall is still pretty high. It's compared to other places around the world, we get a lot of water on a yearly basis.
So the problem is
but the problem, at least at the end from the utility perspective, is that to get it to where it needs to go, right? That takes infrastructure, and to store it, that takes infrastructure, and that's where we have the challenge right now. So that is where there certainly has to be an emphasis, whether it is at the national level in terms of the utility, whether it is at the level of the household in terms of water storage, water cisterns. We've been speaking about rainwater harvesting, for example, for a very long time, but we get far more water than places like Bermuda, and they
I bring that up long time,
and they're dependent on it. And many other islands in the Leewards are dependent on having their own. Each person has to have their own little catchment, and they have to.
Yeah, but Bermuda have a law. The people of Bermuda have to paint the roof every 2 years, because the water coming from the roof, that will be the water on the table to drink tomorrow.
Yeah, so it's really certainly a significant shift that we have to start making in terms of our attitudes towards this very important resource.
Look, Barbados is our neighbor, and I from a little boy, I run in Barbados. And I tell you, I never see a river. What I saw, they had a gully. Right now, they sink it right down on
they use groundwater primarily. They use
that gully there. Is when there's a deluge, that gully runs. You see, and yet still in the 90s, or I think it's the 90s, Barbados decide we're going to save water, and they drill boreholes all over Barbados, and they save the water when the rain comes.
Yeah.
They save the water when the rain comes, and when there's trouble around the Caribbean, Barbados sending water. Barbados sending water there. So what happened to St. Lucia? I always said copy. I believe in copy, because the Japanese buy a crane and they take it to pieces and they can better it, what they buy. We can do it too. Good afternoon, Mr. George.
Okay, caller, thanks very much for that contribution. But certainly, yes, it means that there has to be that level of commitment across multiple administrations, and that's part of the challenge, right? That administrations come, the policy changes, the monies aren't spent, or investment is not made, and then things fall apart. And so we definitely have to have that long-term commitment of, regardless of political parties, to that need towards doing the kind of investments that are required to improve on this, which is continuously going to be a challenge, of course, as we move towards increased demand. That is part of the challenge. I mean, remember we heard about that dam desilting project, nearly $70 million spent, and according to a former minister of government, not even 10% of what was supposed to have been dredged was in fact dredged. So when you've got these types of situations, definitely that's not good enough, and that's definitely not going to solve the problems that we have, which are certainly very real right now. So let's hope we can see some improvements. But in the meantime, I think it's a good practice for everybody to ensure that they've got good water storage as best as you can. That is the program for today, and we do hope that you can join us again tomorrow for another one. I'm your host, Calixte George Jr., saying goodbye.